Hey there, boys, girls of the YouTube world. Today, the Duff Dog and I are going to see if we can't get a 1927 Ford Model T Roadster hot rod running for the first time in 40-ish years, give or take. But before we get into that, we're giving away the old whistle pig. That's right, 1981 Chevrolet C10. It's got an LS, it's got overdrive AC. It's got aftermarket digital gauges, super nice interior. It's got brand new 20-inch wheels and tires, dual exhaust. What doesn't it have? It's way too good. And we got way too many vehicles. For every dollar spent at mortske.com earns you a chance at winning this thing. So head over to mortske.com. We got bottle caps, we got beanie caps, we got sweatshirts, we got t-shirts, we got decals, we got banners, we got fender covers, we got magnetic can koozies, you name it, we got it. If we don't got it, you don't need it. So head on over there. This is going from now, currently, all the way through February 17th. So hurry up, get in there, get entered. Again, every dollar spent is one entry towards winning the old whistle pig. Don't worry, clear title. It's not stolen anymore. Appreciate that. Head on over to mortske.com to get a chance to win it. Now let's get into this Model T. Are you sad that we're giving your pickup away? Yeah, you were sad that I went to jail, aren't you? Here it is. You may have remembered we got this thing at an auction. It was the Jerry Quam Estates up there in Halstead, Minnesota, like a year and a half ago. This thing's got a Model B engine in it, so I'm pretty sure it's on a 32 frame. Maybe 2.5 years ago. I don't know. This thing's been sitting in the background ever since. Obviously, we're gonna hang on to the Roadster. We're gonna hopefully do a will it run on this thing at some point. We got too much crap. We got too many cars. We need to get this video done and wrapped and run her through here and figure out what we're going to do with it. That's why we're getting rid of the whistle pig and the old giveaway. That's why we're working on this thing now, because it's sitting over here collecting dust. You can tell it's a barn find by how the stuff was stacked on it. There was a 39 Chevy fender inside and a 39 Chevy seat, and I've been throwing, there was a radiator and a fan, electric fan for the whistle pig. That thing's getting an upgraded cooling system as well for whoever wins that thing. It's gonna be running super cool pickup. It's gonna run super cool now too. But anyway, I got this thing all cleaned up. You know it's not a true barn find if there ain't a bunch of crap stacked on it. But this crap, it's not really crap. Lug nut guys sent us some banners. We also have banners. And I tell you what, we had to take these things down because we put AC in the shop because it gets sweltering here for about 3.5 days a year. But anyway, it's worse than that. But anyway, we took these down, and instead of putting them back up, some lucky soul who buys a banner, we got the low life banners, we got the crown banners, we got the do banners. Some lucky individual is gonna get a torque your nuts from lug nut guys. Shout out to lug nut guys, great guys, nothing against them. We just got too much stuff. Like I said, we got too much stuff, so we're liquidating some stuff and then handle those nuts with care. I never even got this one hung up. These are both drawn by Mike Yapps, the same guy who does our logos, not this logo, but all the cartoonish hot rod car logos and the Grinch logo. That's Christmas is now past. Hope everybody had a great Christmas. Some lucky individual buys a banner at mortske.com is going to get these things thrown in there, and I'm going to autograph them as well. I'm going to put my Herbie Hancock on there. Chin is going to mail these out to you. And we're going to get them out of the way so we can open the hood on this thing. So what is this thing? This thing is a 26 or 7 Ford Model T Roadster. All the cars before that had like a removable turtle deck, and it was basically the front half of a Phaeton, which was also the front half of a Roadster, which was also the front half of a Roadster pickup. And then 26 and 27, they had the turtle decks molded right on the back of the car. So that was the last 2 years of the Model T. I think those were the only 2 years that they came with steel wheels. 27 actually might have been the only year with steel wheels. I can't remember. Not a big Model T guy. I remember Grandpa talking about it. But anyway, 26 or 7, I don't know how to tell the difference. I don't know if there is a difference. We won't get into that. But if you're a giant Model T guy, you'll notice some differences. Obviously, it's got no fenders. Obviously, it's got some updated headlights. It's got a 32 Ford grill shell. It's got a custom hood. And let's dig into that and why it's a hot rod. So this is a 1932 Ford grill shell. It has been filled on the top where the radiator and the bullnose would be. It's still got the crank hole in the bottom, so that hasn't been filled. It is stock height. There's some holes in the side for some headlight wires. Those have been filled as well. It's got later Ford headlights and some custom made stanchions. It looks like these stanchions are made out of some other type of angle iron, or maybe an inner fender bracket of sorts that's cut and welded to some angle iron. It's got a custom fabricated hood so that you could mount a 26-27 Model T body to a 1932 Ford grill shell. It's all filled and solid, so maybe there's some heating issues. One other thing, a stock Model A, T, or 32 Ford hood would be a gull-wing 4-piece hood. This is a 3-piece hood, so the top is all one piece. It looks like there used to be some leather straps that held the top on. Those have since decayed, however. We got a whole lot of lichens growing on there. On this particular car, they use what looks like leather belts and even the belt clasp to hold it shut. Billberg Auctions, buyer number 12. Still got the tag on there. The headlights are aftermarket guide 903s. Pretty common light to be used by hot rodders. There also should be a gas filler vent cap type deal here that's been filled as well. Looks like it's all been filled with lead, so she's done way back in the day. Speaking of way back in the day, it looks like it's got some 85 tags, and I'm an 85 model, so this thing is coming up on 40 years here shortly. March of 85 to be exact. All right, let's get into some more hot rod stuff, because that's what I love, early hot rods. I know you guys think I'm a Chevy guy, I'm a square body guy, I'm a small block guy. I'm an early Ford hot rod guy. I'm just a hot rod guy all the way around. How about you, Duff? Are you a hot rod dog? So we got 35 Ford wire wheels, 16-inch, only year of the 16-inch wire wheels. It's got some Firestone Champion Deluxes on it that I put on there just to make this thing roll. It kind of had some mismatched tires when we brought it in, but these wheels came with the car. Somebody made these custom push bars. They are chrome, and it also had a tow bar set up on it. They clamped the tow bar over this 1/2-inch bolt. It's got a Dago style stretched and dropped axle that's been filled and smoothed. So basically what they did right there is they would take a stock Ford axle, hammer it, pound it, stretch it, heat it, and then smooth it all out when they were done for a drop. They'd also have to drop all the steering components as well so that everything lined up. So this is a later axle, probably a 32 axle. We'll get more into that later. It's got hydraulic brakes. The Model Ts didn't have hydraulic brakes. Fords actually did not have hydraulic brakes until 1939. It does, however, have some earlier spindles on it, so I believe those are the stock 32 spindles. It's probably 40 Ford brakes adapted to 1932 spindles, if I were to guess. They have these nice little brackets on here for some motorcycle fenders. We'll show you more on that later. It's got aftermarket center caps. The stock center caps would either say Ford or V8, depending on if they were a V8 or a 4-cylinder car. Now let's talk about the frame that's underneath this car. No, it is not a stock Model T frame. Stock Model T frame is about that tall, and this frame is about that tall. The drop axle and the grill shell is going to give us a hint. You can see the body is molded over the frame. Somebody made this custom skirting that covers up the frame. It's kind of hard to tell from the outside. You can see where they welded it to the body right there and filled it over. They also did it on the back half of the body as well. Heading towards the back of the car, there's that turtle deck that I'm talking about, which is basically a trunk for the rest of you folks that aren't fluent hot rodders. It is missing this filler panel right behind the seat and the deck lid. A gentleman threw this at me as I was leaving the auction, said it was for that car, but it's a bit too short. There's the front fenders that I was talking about. It looks like they're a 35/6 Ford spare tire cover, which was common to make those into fenders back in the day. It's also got hydraulic brakes in the rear, and for the drop in the rear, they got a super long shackle. You want to talk about the 39 Ford taillights there, Duffster? So these are 39 Ford taillights. The teardrop shape is the giveaway. These are, however, plastic, so they look like they're replacements. Maybe somebody put those on in the 80s, or maybe they were reproducing them all the way back in the 50s or 60s. Hard to tell. Got a license plate back here, and even a license plate light. What a deal. You don't know how to open these trunks or hoods? I'll do it for you. Should also be a handle on the deck lid here to open this thing up, and as a latch, that's been smoothed over as well. Looks like the trunk lid is custom made. Just some angle iron with some sheet metal over the top and a piano hinge on the front. Looks like we got ourselves a ginormous flywheel in here. I don't know what that's for. I don't speak fluent 4-cylinder Fords. More on that later. Got some Pennzoil. Pretty empty. Looks like this is a flat aftermarket floor. Not aftermarket, it's been replaced. Oh yeah, we had to take some brakes apart to get her to roll. 3-in-1 oil, there's a dab left in there. Oil can. She's stuck. Oh. Made in the old USA though. And it looks like they got a custom fuel tank. That might actually be a Model T fuel tank that's moved to the back. Held in place with some cables and some cable clamps. That cable's actually rubber coated, so That was probably not put together in the 1950s. They probably had some rope and it rotted off. Oh, got a carburetor back here. That looks like 6-cylinder Chevy, 216, 235. What else we got up here? Oh, that's a nice coat hook right there. The old 3-pronger, the finest. Anything else good up front? Plastic battery tray. Looks like the battery cable's running through the floor. I would say that was done even later than the 80s, so maybe this thing was running into the 90s. Small block Chevy harmonic balancer, horn cap, horn ring. It's all coming back to me now. The auctioneer said they caught somebody on camera trying to steal the steering wheel. Luckily they didn't get it. Also, they didn't get much. It is an aftermarket steering wheel. Nothing crazy about it. It's not an old Craig or anything super cool like that. You could see the fuel tank poking through the seat there. I think they just kind of used what they had. The shifter's also been modified. You can see where it's been welded and extended. Looks like it's 2 shifters welded together to reach as far back as it need to and then bent into shape. The gauge cluster is also not Model T. That looks like a 40 Ford setup. They also use those in the 46, 47 Ford pickups as well. Old Henry wasn't about to throw any parts away. They also got some additional switches in the dash, probably for the headlights, the horn, maybe the push button starter. Anyway, this electrical is all gonna be abandoned by us because I don't want to burn down my hot rod. Looks like there was even a dead man kill switch in the floor. Sure enough, there's the battery cable running to it, it looks like. There's that 1932 Ford K-member as well. Looks like they adapted a GM Delco Moraine master cylinder to some stock Ford brake pedals. Use what you got, it's the hot rod way. The transmission, I'm guessing, is just a stock Model B setup, non-synchronized. You didn't have a lot of options for transmissions behind a Model B. Still got the chatter rods hooked up between the K-member and the bell housing. It's got the banjo rear end. It's got the bigger banjo, so that's definitely not a stock Model T rear end. Model Ts were significantly smaller. All right, let's get to the front of this thing. Let's open the hood and we'll show you what we got. Duff's not gonna do it for you because early Ford hoods ain't his jam. All right, let's get this bad boy opened up. And there she is, the biggest flexi hose you ever seen. Just kidding, but it is a flexi hose. So this is a Model B 4-cylinder. You can tell by the way that it is. This is not a Model T engine. They look significantly different. They got some kind of exposed jug action. They do not have a distributor on them either. This engine actually has a Mallory distributor on it. I'm definitely not going to have any parts for that Mallory distributor, however. Got a coil mounted on the firewall. Got a resistor. A voltage regulator mounted on the firewall. Looks like we got a starter solenoid mounted to the tow board as well. We got a GM style early alternator. It's got an externally mounted voltage regulator, Delco Remy right there on the firewall. Flexi hose for the bottom radiator hose as well. So in case you haven't guessed, this car's sitting on a 1932 Ford frame. 1932 was the first year of the Ford flathead V8, but you could still get a 4-cylinder in 1932 as well, which is called the Model B. Conveniently, it went Model T, Model A, 28 to 31, and 1932 was the Model B. And 33 and 34 was the Model C. The difference between the Model A and the Model B is that it's got an externally mounted fuel pump because Model A's had the fuel tank mounted above the carburetor, so they were gravity fed. 1932 fuel tank was in the rear on the frame rail, so they needed a fuel pump to pull the fuel up to the carburetor. Let's get this hood side off and I'll show you more of that fuel pump action. Looks like it's held on with a couple of flathead screws. Ooh, and a square nut. Oh yeah, real hot rod things. No, it's hex head. It's gonna be a little more difficult to hold that nut. Ah, oh, silly flathead screw rounded off. Stripped out? I don't know. Guess we'll be cutting that off. Well, we got the park brake delete cable out. Let's delete said park brake cable. All right, there we go. Oh, it's got a screw holding there to the frame as well. Don't worry, I got my flathead screw removal tool out already. Got it. We were talking about this the day of the auction. I'm pretty sure that this guy's dad was a HVAC technician, just based on how everything was made. Everything is pretty well put together, but the way the sheet metal was done, the welding, the soldering, all that, we're gonna say that this guy was either a sheet metal worker or his dad was. Or her dad, maybe. Maybe it was a gal hot rodder back in the day. Now that we got the hood off, let's take a look at this engine. We may as well take the hood off the other side. We'll get some new hardware on there and show you what we got going on the other side. That way when we got to work on the starter, because inevitably we're going to be ripping into a 90-some-year-old starter as well while we're at it. This car does have a fuel pump on it. However, it is not the stock mechanical one. It is an aftermarket electrical one clamped on the frame down here. It's got a neat old Whittick style hose clamp on it. Those are actually really cool. Thumb screw. Don't need any tools to work on those, even if it took you a screwdriver to get the hood off to get at them. I'm not sure what this conglomeration is. Maybe it's a fuel pressure regulator, I would guess. Since it's got an electric pump hooked up to the stock Zenith carburetor. Good old Zenith cast iron carburetor, just like the Model A's used. Looks like they bypassed the choke. They did, however, hook a spring up to hold it so that it couldn't be applied while you're driving down the road. Got some custom linkage for the throttle. And look at that. Custom exhaust hose. You know what's better than flexi radiator hoses? Flexi exhaust hose. Nothing but the finest for the 50s hot rod. Right there's the block off plate where the stock mechanical pump would be on the side of the Model B engine. That's what you want to look for if you're looking at a Model B engine. If it's got this provision on it, then it's not a Model A. It's a Model B. And some of the later engines, the Model C engines and some of the Model Bs had a counterbalance crank, and that was the hot ticket. I don't know what the horsepower was, like 35 for a Model A and 40 or 45 for these. It was a big difference. You know, 10 horsepower, 5 horsepower was a big deal when you started with 35. Looks like she's got a rebuilder tag over here on the timing cover. Let's clean that up. Let's see what we can find about this engine. Does look like it's been repainted at one point. So a lot of the rebuilders would rivet these tags on the side of the engine and it would tell you what it was bored and then what the crankshaft was ground to. Might even be some dates on it as well. I can't read the rebuilder or supplier, what would be listed up here. Hey, get your Screwed for the Holidays Mortske repair screwdriver at mortske.com. For every buck you spend on these, gets you one entry for winning the old whistle pig. Anyway, it looks like it's bored 80 thousandths and the crank was turned 20 thousandths as well. And then that was probably their serial number, H601 or hashtag 601. And there's a B over here. I presume that means that it was a Model B engine. The interesting part is, I believe this unbolts. So somebody could have bolted this cover onto a different engine and then claimed it needed to be rebuilding or warranty. Interesting. There's our timing pin, similar to what's on a Model A as well. These things shared a lot of commonalities. But look at that, timing marks up there. That is definitely added on because the timing marks would have been this pin on a stock Model B, but I'm guessing they put this on there because you can actually do a little bit more timing on the Mallory distributor. Okay, maybe you can't do more timing on the Mallory, but the Mallory was an improvement, or I assume it was, over the stock Model B distributor. I think the stock Model B distributor was just the Model A that carried over as well. Come on, baby, don't round off. Score a lock and pliers. You can tell it's not mine because it's a no-name brand. And I only use the original lock and pliers, not these copycat knockoffs. We'll still keep it though, use it for something. All right, no bolts holding the hood to the frame on this side. Not a whole lot to see over on this side of the frame. Pretty much just got your dipstick, that super long lower flexi radiator hose, the aforementioned GM externally regulated alternator, the stock Ford starter, and the stock 1932 steering box. It doesn't even look like they had to modify the mounting holes to the steering box to get it to sit in the right position in the cab. So the original 1932 VIN number should be stamped right in here somewhere. It should also be stamped on the side of the block right there as well. I'm guessing if this engine was rebuilt, it was probably they would just swap it out. They didn't rebuild your engine and send it back. You sent yours in and they sent you a different one. But we can see if its number's matching, if that number matches the one on the frame. But we're not going to check because this isn't a 32 Ford. It's a hot rod. Right there shows you why they added that skirting to the bottom of the body. The 1932 frame is substantially wider than the Model T body. So what some of the nicer hot rods they would have done is they would have pinched the 32 frame to be the same width as the Model T body up here, so you didn't have to do that. Because if you know anything about 32 frames, there's a super sexy reveal that would be revealed once we got rid of that skirt underneath there. The 32 body sat on top of the frame, the running board sat below it, and the frame was actually exposed on those cars with that super nice reveal on there. So it's just terrible that they hit it, but it is what it is. I didn't build it. Another thing that I want to mention is these old hot rods, they just don't exist up here in the Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. It seems like all the major hot rodding was around the big cities, you know. San Francisco, Los Angeles, out in Pennsylvania. So on either of the coasts, out here in the Midwest, farm boys had to work all summer. They didn't get to work on their hot rods. And of course, we could only enjoy them for a few months out of the summer. And there was hay to be put up and other types of work that had to be done. So not a lot of hot rods existed up here. And if they did, they were a lot cruder than this. So this is a pretty good example. Let's see what's on said dipstick. Oh no, the dipstick won't even come out of the engine. Not good. Is this battery cable soldered onto said starter? Oh, great. So there should be a stud coming out of the starter that's threaded with a jam nut and another nut that has an eyelet coming off of this battery cable and bolted in place. But it looks like somebody just soldered the whole mishmash together. So we're gonna have to find a different stud and make a new battery cable, because we'll try it with this, but somebody apparently didn't want to fix the stud. Kind of common on those. Actually, that 35 Ford, the stud was stripped out as well, but we're gonna take it easy because those threads are already on the way out. Okay, it's also loose yet. They definitely didn't solder the battery cable onto it. Pretty brave of them. How are we ever going to get that to work properly? Let's start with the dipstick. Oh yeah, she's just a little stuck. Can't believe nobody slid that out at the auction. Looks like it's got really nice clean oil at the top. Some kind of dirty, grimy stuff at the bottom, but at least it's got oil in it, so that's what I'm looking for. Oh yeah, there's definitely some sludge at the bottom. Oh, look at that. It's got Ford script right in the back of the old bell housing. So we know it's been sitting for quite a while. Maximum it's been sitting for 40 years. I feel like somebody was messing around with this thing probably in the 90s, maybe even the early 2000s. Since I've purchased this car, a lot of people, locals, have seen the car, knew that I got the car, and told me that Jerry actually had an estate outside of town. Turns out I bought the contents of the estate on that auction, so we cleaned up the farm and got a few other odds and ends there. But anyway, this car sat there along a fairly busy U.S. highway, or at least a county road. I'm pretty sure it was a state highway. A lot of people had seen this car along with the sprint car that I picked up at that estate for many years. When they posted this car on the auction site, it showed the car sitting inside, so it sounds like the car sat inside at one time, but there was also an extended period of time where the car sat outside as well. So it does look like it's been fairly well covered. Looks like the hood was on it, maybe a tarp or something, because it's not super rusty on top of the engine. But anyway, it's been sitting a long time. Unfortunately, you can't get at the flywheel on these cars to put a bar on it. I can't put a crank on the front of the engine without moving the radiator, because the radiator is not in the stock location. It's actually been moved down. And I'm not even sure that that's a stock radiator, because the radiator cap would have been here on a Model B or a 32 Ford. It's actually back here. So if somebody did this work, they did a very, very, very nice job. And I think that's what they actually did. And then also the radiator hose on the bottom has to sneak up over the cross member, and somebody did some pretty nice work there as well. So it probably is the stock radiator. It's just been modified, and modified quite well. Because when they took away that radiator cap, and they had to have a radiator cap somewhere to fill the thing, so they moved it down here underneath the hood. So anyway, let's pull the spark plugs, take a look down the cylinders, and put some oil in there before we try to crank it over. And then I think what we're going to try to do is try to turn on that nut on the front of the engine. You guys know how much I love flexi radiator hoses. These ones don't look like they're in that bad a shape. So maybe we'll try to take those off there, and we'll get the radiator off, and we'll try to crank on the engine from the front. Short of doing that, I don't know what we got for options other than to pull the engine out and then bar the engine over that way or completely disassemble the engine. And I don't want to get that far into this thing. So let's pull those spark plugs out and see how it looks in there. Because I'm not a fan of dumping oil in it. I wouldn't say that I'm not a fan of putting oil in engines. I don't do it a lot because we're in a hurry, and I don't really care because it's probably a small block Chevy or a Y block or something like that. But these Model Bs they haven't made them for 90 years. So let's try to take as good a care of it as we can, try to prevent any damage. All right, spark plugs coming out. We should probably label these plug wires, but we won't. Tell you what, there's not a lot of stuff on top of that engine, but let's blow it off there so that it doesn't go in the engine when I pull these spark plugs out. We're using our noggin here. I really wish we could have seen the 32 Ford they started out with. I'm hoping it was just a sedan, but I'd still rather have a 32 Ford four-door sedan over a Model T Roadster, unfortunately. A lot of 32 Fords got sacrificed for parts over the years. They got amazing frames, they got good-looking grill shells, flathead V8 engines, and 4 cylinders. I actually think there was more Model B cars sold in this area than there was V8 cars, because it seems like a lot of the bodies that you find and the frames you find, there's markings that you can identify them as 4-cylinder cars, and the majority of the ones that I find by far are Model Bs. Maybe that's because those are the only ones I can afford. Talk about like the most expensive cars ever, 32 Fords. They're insane. They're right up there with muscle cars. But a great looking car and clearly worth it. I'm a 32 5-window guy. Not because I got one. I got a 4-door sedan as well, just the body. All mine are just bodies. But 3 windows, I do kind of want a Roadster because they're bigger than my Model A, and I'm too big for a Model A. Wow. Looks really good in there. Super promising. We'll go get the schlong and point in there and show you what we got going on. This is a flathead, obviously. So you got your piston here and your valves here, going up and down, doing valve things. You know, that's me showing it. Don't get that too deeply ingrained in your head. But anyway, flatheads, super notorious for sticking valves. I haven't broke one off in quite some time. Well, that's going to end the day here at Mortske Repair, but no doubt we're going to deal with some stuck valves. The nice part about these Model B engines is they got this side cover like a Model A, and we can take that off and pry on some valves if we got some sticky ones. But anyway, let's show you what they look like inside. Probably the easiest cylinders to peek into ever. There's one of our valves. It's a Ford scripted valve, so probably a replacement that they bought from Ford. And there's the other one back there. That's the exhaust valve. That's the intake valve. This is cylinder number 1. And she looks pretty good down there. It actually looks like it's been bumped over at one point. That's one way we could get it to turn over. We could take and rock the car. Oh yeah, somebody's turned this thing over not that long ago. It wasn't me. I wonder if somebody at the auction sale tried bumping it over, putting it in gear and rocking it. All right, let's take a look at the rest, make sure there's nothing else we can see. Looks like somebody put inserts in for the valves there. That exhaust valve actually has Ford script on it as well. Cylinder number 2 looks awesome as well, even better than number 1. Got a little bit more rust than number 3. Oh, there's a exhaust or intake valve that's open. Even looks like there's a little crap behind it. A little corrosion going on top of the piston as well. Not looking as good as the front 2. Cylinder 4, again a little rust, not too shabby. Oof, that piston looks great. So, number 3 is going to give us our most trouble, it looks like, if I were to guess. Looks like it's a little, I don't know what they're called. It's a little tiny, little thin leaf. I'm not a, what do you call it, an arborist, so I don't know what it is, but it's a little tiny leaf. I'm going to see if I can blow it out of there. I didn't see anything catastrophic in there like a dropped valve or hardware or end of a spark plug, so I think we're good to go. Let's throw a little oil in it. We're gonna be digging into the distributor anyway, so let's pop the cap off and the rotor, take a look inside. Because like I said, these are aftermarket Mallory components and they're probably obsolete. You're definitely not gonna walk into your local CarQuest or Napa or O'Reilly's and say, hey, give me a Mallory distributor cap for a aftermarket Mallory distributor for a Model B engine. Good news is everything looks awesome. Just a few cobwebs in there will blow out. Look at that cute little 4-blade fan. You don't suppose we could just turn it over using that? Nope. Well, now we got a debacle. I think it's 1 7/16". I don't own an 1 7/16" wrench, and you can't get a socket in between the cross member and the crankshaft bolt. So we got a few options here. We can pull the radiator and the grill shell, and then we can use just a regular Ford crank. We could try turning the engine over by rocking the car back and forth. We could pull the engine all the way out. That isn't going to be very viable, however. Or we could pull the starter off, and then we can try to get in there and pry on the teeth of the flywheel, getting this thing to turn over. And I think that's our best bet. And maybe in the process, we can find a different starter, or we can find a different stud, and Mojo will magically appear and put a new stud on our starter. But anyway, I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take that starter off there. Let's be honest, it was gonna come off at some point anyway, because every starter I get involved with is hot garbage. So let's take the old 3-bolt starter off of this thing and see what we can do. We interrupt your regularly scheduled shenanigans to remind you that the giveaway is going on now through February 17th, right, Duff? On the old Whistle Pig, for every $1 you spend at mortske.com gets you 1 entry at winning the Whistle Pig here. This thing's LS swapped. It's got AC overdrive, posi, dual exhaust, nice interior, digital gauges, all that good stuff. Brand new tires. You win this thing and $3,000, and we're giving away 5 runner-ups, which wins $100 a piece. So go ahead and head over to mortske.com, and for every $1 you spend on merch, gets you 1 entry for the old Whistle Pig. We got everything at mortske.com. We got ball caps, beanie caps, sweatshirts, flannels, t-shirts, decals. We got screwdrivers, pry bars, magnetic can koozies. We got banners. We got fender covers. You name it, we got it. If we don't got it, you don't need it. So head on over to mortske.com and get entered to win the old Whistle Pig now through February 17th, 2025, just in case you're watching this video in 2029. Now back to your regularly scheduled shenanigans. Where are we going to be in 2029? You're going to be an old dog by then. I need to go on 3rd Gen or CW Moss or somebody like that and get some of these replacement studs, because the way it's going, we're going to be needing some around here. I'm fairly certain these are the same starter as a Model A, but instead of having a foot switch to start it, these would have had a solenoid, a starter solenoid of sorts. Because I don't believe there was a foot switch in a 32 Ford, but I've never driven a stock 32 Ford. But stock 34 Fords have a push button on the dash, so I would imagine 32s had the same thing. Huge improvement. Instead of a mechanical push button, it had a electric push starter. People must have blown their minds when the 32 Ford came out. Also, worthless information of the day. My grandpa called 32 Fords fast Model A's, which I can see it. They didn't have a whole lot of styling improvements. I mean, pretty subtle. They weren't crazy elegant like the 33s and 34s and the 35 and 6, but huge power improvements, so hence the fast Model A part. Also, it was Grandpa's 101st birthday last week. We didn't have a party because Grandpa's not with us anymore, but we don't forget about him. Because he's kind of the one I got this knack for cars from. I mean, from my dad, but Grandpa started it all. And I think this starter shares a lot of components with the V8 starters. However, they are an entirely different mounting mechanism. The starter looks really good. I love how even the hardware says Bendix on it. Bendix USA F9X. They just don't make stuff like they used to. People were proud back in the day. Now I think we can pry on the teeth of this ring gear here, which is part of the flywheel, and turn this thing over, hopefully. I definitely don't want to screw up this bell housing because that would not be good. All right, here goes nothing. I got a feeling it's just going to turn right over. And I was wrong. Oh boy. Maybe we try the other way. Not good. Not good at all. It's out of gear. I just rolled it earlier. Do we need a bigger bar? All right, we got a bigger bar. We'll see what happens. I heard a noise, but it didn't move. Oh, there we go. Getting some movement now. Oh, yeah. This is not ideal. Let's try bar number 3. It's going, but man, she's stiff. Now we're gaining some traction. Maybe. We're kind of chewing up where the starter sits here. Not too bad, but I don't want to get crazy and chew that all up, screw that bell housing up, because then we got bigger problems. We got to put a bell housing on it. Like I said, I'm not a Model B guy, but I think that flywheel on there is the same as the one in the back. Hopefully that's not foreshadowing that this thing needs a flywheel. And we got to put that one in the back in there, because if that was the case, we should just be pulling this engine out right now and swapping that and making it a lot easier to turn over. So that being said, we know there's sludge in the oil pan. Let's just put this thing up on the lift. Let's drop that oil pan, get that sludge cleaned out of there, put a fresh oil change in it. We can look at the main and rod bearings, and we can put a bar on the flywheel and turn that thing over a lot easier and hopefully not screw anything up. So let's drop an oil pan. Gotta get it on the lift first. We got it up in the air, no help to you. We can take a look at the bottom side after you get done stretching. Yeah? Okay. I did notice one thing. The rear end was making some funny noises when I lifted it up, and you can see it kind of went cattywampus. And because of those super long lowering shackles. Did you find some leaves to eat? Are you a herbivore now? You're a attention-ivore, that's for sure. Oh dang it, it's a short week with the holidays. We got to get some work done, Duff. Hopefully everybody had a good Christmas. It's not Christmas here. This is pre-Christmas time. But anyway, yeah, you can see how that rear end just kind of walked over there. Somebody had a little sway bar action in here. Not a sway bar? Is that not a sway bar? Panhard bar. 32s did not have a panhard bar, I don't believe. But maybe. I don't think so. They did bob the frame off at the back. It should have hung out back here, and this is where the fuel tank would have set. That needed the fuel pump to lift the fuel from back here up to there. There's the flat trunk for I talked about earlier. Somebody did put a piece of angle iron in there to keep it from sagging though, so that'll beef her up nicely. They didn't have a piece wide enough, so they used a couple sections. Glass pack with some number 9 wire for Quick Dick.
And this is Quick Dick McDick reminding you, a man will never get tired of pulling on his number 9 wire.
And a flexi hose tailpipe, what a deal. You can see they got pretty crude towards the backside here where they overlap that steel over the frame. But there's that amazing 32 reveal right there. That's what you want to see. Hopefully this sheet metal didn't hold too much dirt in between the frame rail and make it all rusty on the outside, because that's the best part of the 32 frame. There's that dead man switch I was talking about. Look at these terrible brake lines. Hoofta. That is crude and ugly. I usually like to attach my brake lines to something, not just have them hanging out in the open. Flopping around, waiting to get hooked on something or vibrate and crack and leak. There's that Delco Moraine master cylinder. Nice flat sheet metal bracket. Again, I would have probably beefed that up a little bit better. The way these things were mounted from the factory was on the pivot point. So I guess they just mounted her from the bottom instead. What a deal. I even wired in the brake light switch. How neat is that?
How neat is that?
Oh, look at all that goodness. Flexi pipe. Woofda. Is it even, I bet that's asbestos coated or porcelain maybe? Because it's not really rusting. It's staying white after all these years. All right, as you can see, the oil pan is kind of part of the hogshead. Is that what they call that on the Model Ts? Kind of all part of that. So let's take that loose, get all that out of there, and get the sludge out. And yeah, get this thing turning over. Looks like the oil pan's got 3 bolts in it that go through the bell housing, so we'll need to take those out as well. We're gonna drain the oil first to get that nastiness out of there, because it's gotta come out at some point anyway. Looks like we're gonna need a replacement rubber for the engine mount, as this one has pretty much left the chat. We got our 15/16. Let's see how bad it is. Hopefully there's not a bunch of water in it. It's antifreeze. Why is there antifreeze? That's not good. And there's a lot of it. We should have just slammed the plug in quick because the oil looks great. I'm trying to figure out where the antifreeze came in, because it couldn't have cracked from freezing because it's antifreeze. Head gasket maybe? I doubt somebody would have just dumped coolant in there to keep it from freezing up. Not really sure. Anyway, glad we drained it. Thought there was going to be a bunch of sludge at the bottom, and there probably is inside the pan. We'll find out shortly. All right, just about ready to pop this thing off. I do see some silicone up there, so DD Speed Shop's definitely been here.
What in the heck? This is junk. Ugh, honestly, it's like embarrassing.
And also, it's been opened up. I don't know when silicone adhesives came around, but I feel like they weren't around 50 years ago. And it's not your regular sealant. It's like bathroom clear tub and tile adhesive. Nothing but the finest. Maybe his dad was a plumber, the guy who built this thing. Yummy.
Yummy!
Okay. How do you get this oil pan out of there? Will that fit by? Maybe? Maybe not. And the Model B Pierce are screaming at me, you can't get that oil pan off without doing XYZ. There we go. Maybe? Oh, we're gonna have to take this steering linkage out of the way. Kinda looks that way, don't it? Let me show you the debacle we got going on here. The hogshead end, or the back side, around the flywheel, is caught on our wishbone here on both sides, wedged in there. And the front is wedged up against our steering drag link, so that's going to be a lot easier to take off than the wishbone. We could take the wishbone loose back here and drop the whole thing down. Decisions. If it wasn't so early in the day, I'd have a sandwich and think about it. What does old Kevin at Junkyard Dig say? Have a beer about it? Should we have a beer about it, pup? Yeah, you just stay over there warmed up. We need a fireplace. Then we can have a beer in front of the fireplace and think about it while you're all curled up nice and warm. All right, we got one end of this steering link loose. Why is that wedged up in there? Okay. Now, there we go. There we go. You. What is this? Looks like some rust, maybe some silicone. Sludge. Lots of it. Maybe the Model Bs are the only ones that have this windage tray too. Can't remember. There's that aforementioned clear silicone I was talking about. Be a good time to clean up our oil pump pickup. There it is. She's not counterbalanced. If it was counterbalanced, there'd be some big nasty weights on here, I feel like. Our rear main seal's in pretty sad shape. But, you know, there's a little rust, a little sludge. I don't see anything too concerning. So that's neat. The main bearing caps are just square-headed. And then also it's got castle nuts for the rod caps with cotter keys in them. All right. Got shims on the main bearings in order to get the proper clearance. Looks like our electric starter is a Walbro Dupree. Made in USA, of course. I think probably still works. All right, let's clean up this mess and try getting this thing to turn over a little bit better. All right, let's put El Jefe on here and see how it turns now. Please just turn over amazingly. Sounded like a valve snapping back into place or out of place. There we go. Oh, there's a hard spot. We're gonna power through it. Or not. All right, going the other way. Turns really well until it doesn't. Got junk falling out of our engine apparently. Okay, I think we made her a full revolution. All right, spins good that way. Let's spin her the other way. I don't know why it would be any different, but can't hurt. There's a fair amount of surface rust going on in there, and I don't really like that inside this engine because there's not much for filtration in the oil system. That's pretty much it right there. So let's see if I can't knock some of this out of there easily enough. I'm gonna be higher than a giraffe's you know what by the time we get done with this. Should be fun.
Because I got high, because I got high, because I got high.
All right. We're done singing. Let's pressure wash this oil pan out. I don't say I hate pressure washing, but it's not my favorite thing to do. But pressure washing items such as an oil pan, which what did my sandblast buddy say? It's like it's like sandblasting the bottom of a salad bowl because everything just shoots back at you. So, case in point, we're gonna get messy, but we gotta get the sludge out of this thing, or we may as well since we got it out. So. Here we go, pressure washing away. Phew. All right, safely go into our environmentally friendly catching location. That's why that Oklahoman takes all his clothes out to pressure wash, so his clothes don't get wet. Tech tip of the day, keep your clothes dry when you're pressure washing by not wearing any. Won't be happening on this channel. You notice how he hasn't done any pressure washing in quite some time? Yeah, I think he's cheaping out on you guys, not cheaping out. I think he's too big for that. He's got somebody for it. Doesn't even do his own pressure washing anymore. Yep, we're just peasants here in North Dakota, but Oklahoma, those guys are big time. Anyway, I'm gonna go get cleaned up. Frickin' pressure washers. But our oil pan's clean. Cleaner than it was anyway. Oil pan's just about dried out. That's our favorite part of the pressure washing. Sitting there watching water dry. Ain't it, Duffers? Ain't it? Oh, yeah. Because you get all the pets while it's drying off. I'm going to take some Right Stuff, some silicone and dab it around the corners of the front and rear seals to try to seal them up. I know it needs a new gasket and it needs new rope seals, but we're not going to put a new gasket in an engine that doesn't run. So we're going to do that. And then, yeah, probably put some oil in it and maybe try priming that oil pump thinger. Seem like a good idea to you, pal? Maybe free up some valves. Anyway, right stuff. We're going to dab it on the corners of the front and rear seals and throw an oil pan back on. Remember, DD Hack Shop fans, a dab will do ya. Too much will shmoo ya. Just shmoo a little in the corner by the rear main. Try to stab that. Oh boy, that seal shrunk way up. That's gonna be an issue. It's a flathead, they leak oil. That's how you know there's oil in it. Oh, we don't want to put that around that rope seal. We'll just put a little up there anyway. Yep. Just a happy little amount of the right stuff.
Maybe there's a happy tree, evergreen tree. He lives right there.
Oh, why am I lightheaded? Must be the brake cleaner. All right. We gotta put it back on the same way it came off, so sneak the back part up around the wishbone. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Maybe? We don't have the clearance around the oil pump clearance.
2-4.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
What's your problem? Oh. Got on that front cross member. Son of a... Do we have a pry bar for that? I bet it would pop right in if the engine mounts weren't all sacked out. There we go. This overhead stuff. Real good shoulder workout. So one neat thing that Ford did is they got this big, well, it's a washer that goes around the perimeter of the whole oil pan, so it doesn't deform the oil pan, the stamped steel, when you tighten these up. You got I don't know, it's like a 1/4-inch strap the whole way around. It spreads out the load. Ingenious.
Brilliant!
Why didn't other manufacturers do that in the 60s? All right, we can put our drain plug in and set this thing on the ground, throw some oil in it. All right, let's put some oil in this thing. We got nothing but the finest John Deere, come on, oil fill lid. John Deere Torque Guard 30 weight. It's probably detergent style. So, oh yeah, these just, do they twist off? Yeah, they twist off. You don't even need a funnel with these things. You just glug it in there. The hole to hit is literally bigger than the fuel filler neck on a 379 Peterbilt. Does that mean I'll still spill? Abso-freaking-lutely. Oh yeah. Take that slobbery, honey-thick goodness. How much is that? A gallon? I guess we'll have to check it to see if it's full. My plan was to pull the distributor out and try to prime the oil pump, but I'm not really sure how these things work. But I have had a few distributors out, and I don't think the gear comes with the distributor. So I don't know if we're gonna have any luck priming this thing. And if the distributor fights us coming out, we're gonna stop, because the distributor's the most valuable part of this engine. Well, to me anyway. Check the old dipstick. What the French? The stickiest dipstick ever. Looks like we need another quart. Little Service Pro premium lubricants going in, also 30 weight. 5 quarts better be enough for a little 4-cylinder. We were changing oil on some Chevy Trailblazers last week, and they were turbocharged 4 cylinders. I think they were 1.3 liters, just babies. You know, I'm not even sure what size cubic inch this was. I think the flatheads of this era were 221 cubic inch, half the size, so were they 105.5 cubic inch? We're in the operating range. This thing must take like 6-7 quarts of oil. I almost misplaced the oil filler because I thought it was the gas cap on the cowl. Rookie mistake. Let's try to get this Mallory fished out of the old flathead here. So you'll notice there's no hold down clamp. There is a set screw, however, so let's loosen that up and see what happens. And of course you can't get the box end on it, so let's hope it's moderately loose, relatively. Oh yeah, it's turning anyway. So this is an aftermarket exhaust manifold. There's a lot of these made, especially up here in the Midwest. So it's got this big old flange on the top with these 2 bolts, and there would have been a big cast iron cover that dropped over the top and ran into the firewall, and they used heat off of the manifold to heat the car because these cars didn't have heaters from the factory. And hopefully it didn't have an exhaust leak because otherwise it would blow exhaust in the car. So if it wasn't blatantly obvious, this head is cast iron and this distributor is cast aluminum. And aluminum and steel or iron don't get along real well. So this might not be good. And like I said earlier, I really don't want to screw up this distributor. Ooh, it doesn't want to budge. Everything looked pretty oily underneath. I'm sure there's a film of oil on the bearings. We're going to turn it over a few times, trying to get it to run anyway. So let's just not even mess with that distributor. I think the best way, if I really needed to get that distributor out, I think the best thing to do would be to pull the head off. And that's the furnace. So yeah, pull the head off, take the distributor with it because it's seized in the head, and then you can heat it up and spray oil from both sides and get it out of there. Because otherwise, if I put a bar on this thing, even if I throw some heat at it, I feel like, based on experience with me and aluminum distributors and going through cast iron blocks, we're gonna break it. And I really don't want to break that Mallory distributor. We will hit it with some coil, so when that time comes, maybe it'll just fall right out. I'm guessing somebody didn't put their anti-seize on there before they put it together. Because everybody puts anti-seize on their distributors when they install them, right? Yeah, right. Don't think I ever have. All right, it's Christmas Eve day, and Mojo took the day off and yesterday off and probably tomorrow off. So no starter repairs from Mojo today. So let's throw this starter back on there. Cross our fingers, hope it works. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to break into my starter skills, which is nothing compared to the Mojo magician. Little coil can't hurt the starter or the hardware. All right, starter's on. I'm gonna go round up a new starter solenoid and some battery cables because what's on here ain't real good. And we wanna give every possible advantage to this starter assembly as we can. So new battery cables and solenoid coming right up. All right, this wiring is terrible. The correct connector for the alternator is not present. It's got these terrible insulated eyelets. We're gonna clean the old wiring situation up. That and our starter cable here kind of wants to run where it's ran forever. So I'm gonna get this old starter solenoid out of the way and we're gonna put our new one right in the same spot. But we're gonna use all new wires because like this is a mess. What do we have a bullet connector splice going to the coil for? Who knows? We don't need no stinking charging system anyway. Why would you need a wire that's 3 feet long to go 3 inches? And why would you put an eyelet on that end but just twist it under the screw on the other end? This guy's dad was clearly not an electrician. There's our power wire for the coil, and just twisted together, not even soldered, and then not electrical tape, just your regular masking tape over the top. Nothing but the finest. We're gonna leave our coil wire for now. What's that for? What do you do? The horn? We'll leave it over there for now. So this is our water temp. That's our coil. Guessing this powers everything up in the cabin. Who knows what that does? Way better. Now we just gotta get that solenoid out of there. Not a paid promotion, but these vice grips by Irwin with the power slot. Yeah, that's right. That's the power slot. These things are way good. I got this screw kind of loose and I'm sick of dealing with it. So I'm wondering if the old power slot won't just cut that son of a gun off. These things are so good. I just couldn't get in there with a 4.5-inch angle grinder, and no sparks this way. These things are freaking amazing. I think I got these on Amazon. I'll try to remember to put the link in the video description, but I definitely won't. The old power slot. Use the old locking pliers to clamp the solenoid in place. Santa's here.
Santa's here. Oh, Mortske, I can't wait.
All right, we chased Mrs. Claus off after she brought us some rum chata. She knows the way to our heart. This week's battery sponsored is Lizard Larry. You too could be a battery sponsor at mortske.com. And you know what? Other than being a battery sponsor, you get a little, I don't know, advertising for whatever you want to be. In this case, Larry's Lizard. But also gets you a whole bunch of entries into the drawing for the old Whistle Pig, which goes now through February 17th. So head on over to mortske.com and you can get your swag there, your sweatshirts, your ball caps, your beanie caps, your t-shirts, your decals, super scrapers, magnetic screwdrivers, can koozies, and battery sponsors to get your chance at winning the old Whistle Pig. For every $1 you spend there, you get one entry into the old giveaway. And not only are we giving that thing away, we're going to give the grand prize winner $3,000 in the U.S. currency. And then we're going to have 5 runner-ups. They each get $100 as well. So head on over to mortske.com for more details. Let's hook up the old loser switch, see if we can't get this thing to turn over. Or maybe we're going to be asking Santa Claus to bring us a starter. Here goes nothing. Good news is the starter turns over. Bad news is the Bendix is not engaging. So I guess we'll take that starter back off and take a look at the Bendix. Hopefully it wasn't the flywheel. The flywheel didn't look terrible, but it's kind of concerning that there's a flywheel in the back of this car. So let's rip a starter off and play with the old Bendix. Don't play with your Bendix at the family Christmas table. All right, let's pull starter off. So here's basically the Bendix assembly. And instead of the Bendix shooting out and into the flywheel, it pulls it into the flywheel. Ford things, I don't know. Anyway, when I turn this back and forth, I feel like it should follow those spiral gears in and out. And it's not. So maybe it's just sticky. Maybe it's shot. I don't know. These springs are super common to break, especially when you convert them to 12 volts. But this one looks good. So let's test it. We should definitely have a solenoid for this. That's what Duff told me. Why is it turning over so slow? Come on, baby! Thinking we got a bad ground. Or not that good a ground. I mean, surely there isn't any issues with that whole conglomeration. How that doesn't arc out and get hot, I don't know. Is our booster pack dead? Weird. How did that happen? Everything's falling apart around here. Batteries are dead, booster packs are dead, our pets' heads are falling off.
Our pets' heads are falling off!
Well, we'll put the booster on the charger, grab a different one. Hopefully that's charged up. This booster pack tested out better, so let's see what happens. Woo! So this thing's supposed to go wham and slam in that way. And then as the engine starts, the flywheel still engaged in this, and centrifugal force, or centrifugal, if you're British probably, will kick it back and disengage it. So let's get some pliers and try to free that up. Maybe even hit her with some coil. A little coil action. So we talked earlier about the power slot. These Nipexes are, not a paid promotion. These Nipexes, they are good. So good. All right. Sure, we got to turn that way. It wasn't even stuck. Just a little gooey. The right thing to do would be to take this all apart, clean the goo out of there, and run her through a few times.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So we're just gonna run her through a few times. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now my hands smell like coil. Now let's watch the coil zing everywhere. It's gonna go that way, centrifugally. So I'm gonna stand parallel to the shaft, not perpendicular. I don't know. I'm gonna get sprayed no matter what. I think it's working. This isn't gonna kick itself out. There's no spring in front of it, so we're gonna have to manually kick her back. Good to go. Watch up in here, get a little spark action. Imagine that. I don't know how that does not arc into the case. Well, if we burn the shop down, it was definitely that thing's fault. All right, let's slam this starter back on and see what happens. Hopefully no more starter issues. I like bench testing these things. I probably should have bench tested it when I was out, but you're not really putting a load on it, so a lot of things can change, especially when you got a terrible battery cable such as this that's married to the starter. So am I feeling better? Yes. But am I feel good about this whole situation? No. How about you? Feeling good about this starter situation? Yeah, probably not. But give it a whirl for now. We don't have Mojo here to rebuild it for us today. Rebuilt, starter reinstalled. Let's see what happens. Woohoo! Rotor even turns on the distributor. So, I mean, that means the oil pump should be turning, right? I don't know why I'm excited about that, but let's give her a couple zings over, give her the old thumbs up compression test, and see how many valves we got to deal with that are stuck. This will also give it a chance to hopefully prime the oiling system while we're cranking it over as well. 0, 0, 0, 0. We're just gonna go ahead and pull that inspection cover off the side of the block so we can get at the valve train over there and see what's going on and spray some lube in it and loosen those all up. I'm half tempted to pull the intake and exhaust off it for accessibility, and I really think this thing needs a homemade header coming out the side. Like a little Dry Lakes or Speedster or Roundy Round Special. That'd be pretty neat. It don't look real good in there. This is what the inside of the cover looks like. The inside of the engine looks the same. Ugh. That is unfortunate. Yucky. Ew. That is just horrendous. Loose, flaky rust everywhere. And I mean everywhere. So here's what I think. I think this is a super low mile engine, or it's been apart and cleaned and put back together and doesn't have much runtime on it, because there should be a bunch of sludge sitting in there. There's always sludge sitting in there. I think this engine was recently gone through. It didn't have many miles on it, and then it sat. And because it didn't get covered with oil and coated with oil, that's what led to this rust. There would have been some rust in there from sitting, you know, in the higher spots, but the way the rust is sitting all along the bottom of that valve train galley tells me that this thing probably didn't run a whole lot, didn't get coated with oil. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna lift it up, drain the oil, pull the oil pan off, pull the intake and exhaust off, carburetor, all that stuff, and try to get in there with the pressure washer and clean it up real good, because I think this thing deserves it. And I really don't want to, I'll never get it all cleaned out of there with just a wire brush. I mean, it'd take eternity. And I think the pressure washer will do a lot more effective job of it. And we don't want that stuff coming loose and getting in the oil pump and getting in all of our bearings and whatnot in the bottom end. So this is why I've been delaying doing this thing, because I knew we would have to do it right. We don't like doing things right around here. We're not good at it. So we'll see you guys after a break, and we'll think about this some more and determine what we're going to do. But I think we're going to rip a little bit more apart and get in there with the pressure washer. We probably should just take the head off and do it all, but we might not. I still don't know where that coolant came from. Who knows? Who knows, Duff? but there's definitely some stuck valve action going on in there and some rust, and they are related. Probably not a bad idea we pulled that off. There's a fair amount of crap inside of there. Hoofta. I can't believe that engine turns over as well as it does. A lot of crap in the intake and exhaust ports. We're gonna get that all cleaned up though, ain't we, Duff? Best Christmas ever, working on hot rods. Do we pull the head off though? I mean, we're this far. Probably a good idea. Try to find that crack that the coolant came in. Okay, I'll do it. Yep. See what happens. Ready to pressure wash this thing off, pal? These flathead heads are never fun to remove because they got studs instead of bolts, and they get hung up on the studs. This one got really hung up on the shaft that goes between the distributor and the oil pump. That really fought us. That guy right there, she was super hung up. It was hung up right there. Once we got her popped out of the distributor, it came right off. Hopefully we can scrounge up a new head gasket. I feel like I got a Model B gasket set laying around, but if not, we're gonna have to try to make this copper one work. But you can see those cylinder walls look like brand new. I think somebody went through this thing, like I said earlier, and didn't hardly run it all. Tech tip of the day, this is where your thermostat housing is, or whatever. Water neck, there's no thermostat. Make sure you take those off. Ask me how I know. I didn't do it this time, but in the past I've forgotten those. All right, pal. Bernie gonna tow this thing out and into the wash bay. I don't think we'll have a problem with Bernie. Hopefully the straps land on these Nerf bars up here so we don't screw up our 32 grill. And hopefully that sludge comes out of there real nice. Yeah, probably. Oh yeah, and because our engine mounts are so shot, I had to lift up on the engine a little bit with a bar to get the belt off. Oof, that pulley got a little rusty down there too from sitting in them leaves over the years. Well, hopefully she cleans up. All right, we got this T moved back over here to the lift, and Bernie, of course, is the unsung hero of Mortske repair. Once again, check out how good this thing looks inside now. Spray some oil in there to keep that rust from spreading, get any flash rust out of there. These cylinder walls look perfect. You can see the 80,000 stamped on top of the pistons, and number 3 stamped on that one as well. So yeah, it's pretty unbelievable what a little hot water and some pressure will do. And looky what we found here in my stash. We got an old Victor 105-003 set for a 200 or 212 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine from 32 to 34, the Model B. And BB, yeah, that's a gem. I don't know where I even scored that thing, but hey, get your Mortske Christmas decals at mortske.com. And look at this. Schmoo Fighters. I thought this was from DD Speed Shop, but this is Area Diesel Service. Go check those guys out. Great dudes if you got any diesel stuff.
First and foremost, number one, thank you.
He knows if you've been good. Santa Kurt is coming to town, so there must be a story behind the Schmoo Fighters. So go check that out at Area Diesel Service. They got a YouTube channel as well. But We got a 2X and an XL, and my closet is full. And then Beast Custom Works also gave me a shirt for Christmas. This has got a 64 to 66 Chevy that they built on it. And that is a 2XL. And they also gave us a keychain and a bunch of koozies. And I got another magnetic can koozie. This was the sample from when we got our magnetic ones. That's just like ours, but they don't say sun's out, buns out. I think that's supposed to be a hot dog. But anyway, not only are we giving the whistle pig away, every dollar you spend at mortske.com, we're gonna give these things away. If you buy a can koozie, one lucky person, or I think there's 4 koozies there. 4 lucky people are gonna get an extra koozie in there. One person who buys a keychain is gonna get a Beast custom keychain. One person who buys a 2X is gonna get a Beast shirt. Another person who buys a 2X is gonna get an Area Diesel shirt with their shirt. And same deal, there's an XL in there. So if you're a XL or a 2XL, and you buy a shirt from mortske.com and get in the drawing to win the old whistle pig. It's over here now. I moved it when we had to do some pressure washing because the mega cab was in the way. But anyway, mortske.com, get some swag, get some extra swag, and then maybe get a nice pickup, $3,000 cash as well by entering. And 5 runner-up folks is going to get $100 as well. So head on over to mortske.com. And if you're not into koozies or keychains or t-shirts, we got sweatshirts, we got ball caps, we got beanie caps, we got magnetic screwdrivers, we got banners, we got fender covers. We got it all. If we don't got it, you don't need it. All right, since we got new gaskets, new old stock gaskets, I'm gonna clean this whole spiel up with our super scraper. Get yours at mortske.com and get that all ready to go. And then while we're at it, we're gonna spray a bunch of oil inside of there to keep those from rusting and in the cylinders and all that good stuff. But before we put it together, we're gonna get these valves loosened up. And what else are we gonna get loosened up? This distributor. I left her sitting with coil in that pocket overnight. We gotta try to get that tapped out of there without screwing nothing up. So we got things to do. But it's a lot cleaner and less rusty, and we got access to our valves. So let's get after it. Check out what we got going on here. We got 2 valves per cylinder, 4 cylinders. So that's 8 valves, right, Duff? So at any given time, there should only be 4 valves open. But we got 7 valves, Duff. So I'm guessing that one's working on number 1, but we got a couple stuck for sure. Oh yeah, we checked and there's 1 on every cylinder. So that's one thing. I need to make something for pulling cylinder heads off that go into the spark plugs, a hook. Everybody says you got to, and some guys say, well, just crank the engine over and get the cylinder head to come off. Well, that works if you got compression, and usually that's not something we have to our advantage, is compression in these engines. So compression was not going to push that head off. So let's get the coil out, lube up that valve train, and start getting her loose. Oh, they use the same silicone up here on the intake and exhaust. Would you look at that, Duff? Would you just look at it?
He probably did that. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, would you look at that?
You're so helpful. What would I do without you? Yeah, we definitely would have never got this inside, this cleaned out with a wire brush and a screwdriver and a gasket scraper, that's for sure. It's a shame we ruined this copper head gasket because the replacement one is not copper. Dang you, Victor Rains. Oh, it's not even Victor Rains, it's just Victor, it's so old. Ooh, this one is part number 573C, and it's made in England. You don't see a lot of made in England stuff over here anymore. Got a few folks from England who watch that comment. They're probably not working on Model Bs over there. They probably got some, I don't even know what kind of cars they got in England. This head gasket is just kicking my butt. I bet that's asbestos in between the copper layers. Nothing but the finest. Yeah, you can tell it's asbestos by the way it tastes. While we're cleaning gaskets off, we might as well get these chewy sons of guns off there. All right, time to play my favorite game, Flathead Whack-A-Mole. You're supposed to use that end of the hammer allegedly makes a big difference. Doesn't. Ask me how I know, because I'm the whack-a-mole king. No, we're not going to make that into a decal. So, which ones of these are not supposed to be up? Yay! Sounds pretty solid. Hoofda. How's that not moving? Seems really loose in there. All right, now we do it all over again. Oh my word. I'm gonna go get the flathead V8 pry bar and try prying them closed as opposed to tapping, because I've never broke a valve by prying. Tapping, on the other hand, definitely. See how this works. So far, no good. Cheese and rice. Oh, that's ugly. Let's try some heat. We got the old Smith torch out, and you want to heat through the exhaust ports and the intake ports, because that's where the guides are, that's where it's hung up. You don't want to heat on the bottom side of the valve where the springs are, because when you heat down at the bottom side where the springs are, you're going to take the springiness, the K factor, out of the spring, and then your valve won't want to close with the spring, which is already the problem we have. So we don't want to make it any worse. Good grief. These are some of the most stuck valves I've ever seen in my life. And that, folks, is saying something. Cheese and rice. Wow. This is going to be a long game, kids. Not looking good. We get a bigger hammer, we're going to have a bigger mess. I guess we just keep heating and beating. That's what all you can do, ain't it? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Flathead valve stuck tight as can be. Good gravy. All right, 2 out of 4 cylinders. Now we got to get 3 valves on 2 cylinders going. Starting to wonder if the bore where the lifter rides down here isn't where it's seized up, so I'm going to put some heat down there. Can't hurt, just stay away from them valve springs. Ka-chow! How do we put that out? Do we put that out? Hey, hey! It was stuck in the lifter. All this. Let's see how this goes. Spray and coil on an open flame. About as I expected. Baking soda, is that what we need? We need heat on the other lifters. That's what we need. We don't need our striker. We got an open flame. Finally going? Come on, baby. Took a lot of BTUs to get to where we're at. Oh. Woofta. One more to go. That took a lot of heat. So we got the intake on number 3 to go here. And it's awful loose in the guide, I think. But every time I tap it, it looks like it's wanting to break. So I'm not excited about that. That was a lot of heat, getting that exhaust open on number 3 as well. Bad news. So it was really hung up both in the guide and down in the lifter bore. Yuck. Let's put some coil on there, see if it flames right up, because there's some heat in there. All right, let's bump it over until this exhaust valve is open, because then we know that the intake can't be open as well. And get that thing loosened up, hopefully. Here we go, last stuck valve. It's going! Come on, baby. We got all the valves moving. I don't like how, I think that was the intake we were working on, that last valve we were working on. It's not closing all the way, so I'm gonna give that a couple more taps, and surely we're gonna have to work them a little bit more.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
To get them to where they gotta be, but we got them all to move once. And we haven't broken any so far, Duff. We got work to do, you know? We're gonna lose the shop. Keep dragging these flatheads home. And we gotta give the whistle pig away. It's tough around here. Worst Christmas ever. All right, let's get back to work. You gotta be freaking kidding me. They're all working now. Who'da thunk? A little coil and a little heat from our friend Mr. Smith here goes a long ways. Get your a little heat goes a long ways. Mortske repair decal at mortske.com for your chance at winning the old whistle pig. I don't even know what to do now. We should probably put oil in it. Oh, we gotta probably heat up that head and get that distributor out of there. That's what we'll do next. Distributor removal tool. You're sick of all this heating and beating, ain't you? Let's just move this 32 Ford frame out of the way and use this as a workbench so that we can get a Mallory distributor removed from a Model B head. The only part that doesn't get mad when you call it a B head, what are we gonna put down there to catch it so that it doesn't fall out, Duff? And will it fall out? Yeah, if we don't put something down there, it'll surely fall out. Perfect. Throw the old Mortske repair sweatshirt underneath there. That should cushion the blow. Now I know I could probably tap that out. I'd tap that. Another Mortske repair decal you can get at mortske.com for a chance to win it. The old whistle pig. Anyway, I know I could tap that out, but I'm afraid of damaging the distributor. So heat shouldn't damage it at all. So we don't want to be beating on the shaft. We don't want to be beating on the body of the distributor or the base. So let's just try a little heat first. Probably not good for my sweatshirt. Season it a bit. Is that rotor off there? Let's take that off so we don't break it. There we go. Judging by the flaming coil, we got some heat in there. Can we just twist it out of there by hand? Come on. Yeah, right. Ah, that's hot. Who'd have thought? Who would have thought? I really don't want to tap on this thing, but dagnabbit. I really don't want to mar this thing up, but I don't know what other options we got. Good gravy. Oh, man. Aluminum and steel. Not exactly the best of friends. There. The old Nipex saves the day. We marked it up a little bit, but at least we didn't break anything or ruin anything. Wiggle her back and forth a few more times. I think she'll come out of there. That's it, baby. Walk her on out of there. It's still warm. Whew. Put a couple of bite marks on her, but casualty of war, we could polish those out if we really need to. Whew. This thing's... It's been fun. We'll just call it that. Head's all cleaned up. Check out this combustion chamber. This is why these things are 4.6 to 1 compression ratio. Just a huge combustion chamber. They do make aftermarket heads for these things, or high compression heads, or performance heads, and this is one of the reasons why. Bump that compression up. All right, I think we're ready to throw this thing back together and see if we can't get some compression coming from this engine for the first time in who knows how many years. It was working earlier. I checked it again, oil everything up before I put her back together, and the old intake valve on number 3 is not real happy. And somebody's not happy. They're not getting attention while I'm sitting down and talking. And that somebody has a wet nose and a wiggly tail. Okay, attention. Anyway, when I turn this over, that thing doesn't go all the way down, and I've tried everything repeatedly, so I think we're gonna pull a valve out. I've never pulled a valve out of a banger, so we'll figure it out on our own. Together. Actually, I'll do all the work. You guys watch. Yell at your phone or TV or computer or Etch-a-Sketch or however you're watching this. But I think all we got to do is compress the spring with a little pliers type tool. I think I got one somewhere. And then pop the keeper off and then slide it out of there. And then hopefully we can just clean up the stem, slide it all back together, put the clip back on and the spring back on, and we'll be in business. I don't know why seemed like it was working earlier and is not now. Do you know why? Your nose is still wet, and your tail is still wiggly. Ouch. I asked for that. Let's just double check. Maybe it fixed itself. Nope. It goes about halfway back down, but doesn't go the full amount. Awful brave hitting it with our left hand, Mortske. With all the heat we put into that thing, a new spring would be nice to put on there, but you think I got any of them around? Yeah, right. Spare Model A or B springs. Probably in an engine somewhere. Look at this whole hot rod. Made by Sunnin. I don't think I've ever used it. If we use it once, we'll get our money's worth. Old valve spring compressor, $1. I don't understand it, though, because that would be compressed. And when you squeeze it together, it would be expanded. Extended? So, yeah, I don't get it. Usually you want it squeezed together and that would compress it. So, I don't know how this is going to work. We're gonna try, though. So, yeah, this is entirely the wrong tool. I wonder if we can just use a regular valve spring compressor and just go from the top side. All right, here goes nothing. I don't know why this won't work. Oh, look at that. Brilliant. I don't know what. Ah! Something bit me. That's gonna be a blood blister. Ouch. No blood yet. Son of a. Let's try again. I don't know what happened there. Oh, the spring diameter is narrower on these than most engines. All right, we got her tightened up. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna go get a magnet because, well, maybe I'm not. How does this work? Oh, it just slides over. There we go. Oh, you gotta get the guide out too. Son of a. So the valve, instead of being straight, and having normal keepers, it's got a bell at the bottom, and then this just slides over the stem, and that bell sits in there, and that's what holds your valve spring in place. But you got to knock the guide out of the block, which is a 2-piece guide, in order to get the whole assembly out, get the valve out. And I don't have the tool for that. I bet my grandpa does somewhere, but he's been dead for about, 16 years, something like that. So he's not going to be of assistance because that bell is not going to fit through the guide. But better yet, the valve goes up and down in the guide. So it's the lifter that's sticking. So we don't need to take the guide out and the valve out. We just gotta fix the sticky lifter. How do we do that? Do they go in from the top? Do they go in from the bottom? We're learning things today. Never had one of these bad boys apart. Let's see. Sneak this valve spring out here. I said sneak the valve spring out of here. Come on now. What are you caught on the bottom of the stupid valve? There we go. Now, how do we get the lifter out? Maybe we just clean up the top of the lifter here. Put it back in. Let's see if the lifter goes up and down like it should. It's got to be what's hanging up. Probably don't want to grab your lifters with a lock and pliers, but we ain't real smart. I feel like there was something on the bottom that keeps them from coming up this far. If it drops out the bottom, the camshaft rides against it, so we're going to have to pull the camshaft out in order to get that lifter out of there. That doesn't sound like any fun at all. Let me get some emery cloth and try to clean it up with that. Got a little 600 grit going on here, so it's not like we're getting crazy with some 60 grit. I presume that lifter spins, right? Oh yeah. Or not. Oh yeah, it definitely turns. Now let's see what it does. It's hard to tell because you don't have that valve spring putting pressure on it. I don't love it. I don't love it. Maybe we hit her with some brake clean and clean the crap off of it. Don't worry about the dirty rag we're using to clean it up with. Maybe we're gonna have to go with the old 60 grit. For cheese and rice. Definitely not the valve hanging up because just gravity will pull that all the way down. Something is sticky in that lifter and it's just in the very top part. All right, we're downgrading to 120 grit. Not what I wanted to do. Now let's see what happens. Man, it was good for a few revolutions, then it went to crap. How does this happen? Sander again, I guess. think we got her. Let's put the valve spring back on it and see what happens. Slide that guy over there and make sure we put it the right direction. Come on now, give me my valve spring compressor back. Now let's crank it over, see if that valve closes by itself. And the lifter goes all the way down with the assist of the valve spring and not of a hammer. Keep an eye on that guy. By golly, I think we finally got her licked. Now we can throw everything back together. Or at least put the head on it and some oil in it and the distributor and the carburetor. We don't need to put this side cover back on because we might be in there later. Flatheads are fun. All right, we let her sit overnight. Let's see if this valve goes back to where it's supposed to today. You gonna get right up in there, Duff? Check it out. Is it gonna scare you when it turns over? What is that? It's working. Look at it. Look at it. Yeah, we did a good job. All right, everything looks good. I think I'm gonna drain what's in the oil pan because there's probably some coil and some brake cleaner and who knows what else, maybe some water that ran down there. And wipe this out a little bit and throw some oil in it. Throw our head gasket on. Hopefully we'll get some compression. Look at how pitted up that drain plug is from water sitting in it over the years. There's no copper washer on here, so I'm gonna go see if I can find one of those so this thing will seal up, you know. We don't want any leaks on our rebuilt banger. Speaking of leaks, check this out. I'm guessing this thing had oil pressure gauge or something at one point. I'm guessing we're gonna have oil leak there at some point. We'll worry about that later. If I had one of them fancy priming systems, I could hook it up to there and pressurize the oil and, you know, do oil things throughout the system. What do they call that? Not bleed it. Prime it. We could prime the oil system if we had one of them fancy things. My dad's got one that I'll probably never use again, but we don't have one. We're just peasants here. All right. We do have copper washers, so I'm going to see if I can find the right one. Maybe we'll find a plastic one. Maybe we won't find anything. We didn't have any copper ones, but I did find a fiber one that's a 20 millimeter unit for a Honda. So we're putting Japanese parts on our Model B. Wait, is there one already on the bottom of the pan? Nah. If there is, it's gonna have two now. I was just about to stick my camera on the grill. Buyer number 66 was the devil's number that day. Nothing pisses me off more than when auctioneers put numbers on nice things like 32 Ford grills. Like, is that really necessary? Some of them numbers never really come off. These ones might. Quit doing that. If somebody bought it, they know that they bought it. You don't have to remind them by putting their number on it. Oh, freaking auctioneers. Alrighty, let's put our recycled oil back in. Yummy.
Yummy.
I don't recall the Model A's oil fill being this large of a diameter, so maybe they're larger on a Model B. Maybe I don't dump enough. Whoa! Maybe I don't dump enough oil in my Model A's. I guess I put the label in there. Good save. There, now at least we can't have forgotten to put oil in it. Well, this gasket says Felpro on it. Kit says Victor. So they probably took the good copper gasket out and put this one in there, but that's what we got. Felpro part number 7014 if you care, if you're looking for one. Looks like she's gonna fit. Ah, there we go. All right, our head's all cleaned up. Let's throw it together, throw some hardware at it. John Deere green was a terrible color choice. I think some of the Oldsmobile Rockets were an ugly green color. Now let's see if we got some compression. Oh yeah. Of course that one, the valve isn't seating as well, but that number 4 will blow your thumb clear off. Well, looky here. The oil's not running out where I thought it would, but I think we're getting oil pressure. Ooh. Maybe we'll run a little bit out of there. But yeah, building oil pressure. You gotta love to see that. Good old 30 weight. I guess if that's the case, we should probably put that side cover on so we're not losing all our oil. And after we get that side cover on, we'll throw the intake and exhaust setup on. Find top dead center, drop our distributor in. We'll be in business in no time. These silly water necks are notorious for cracking. This one is no different. It cracked. Son of a biscuit. These things are always brazed up and soldered. This one's actually been modified to put that temperature sender in it anyway, so nothing hurt here. You can buy new ones from CW Moss and Eckler's and Snyder's and all those aftermarket suppliers, so not a big deal. It happens. If that's the biggest casualty of this whole debacle, I think we're doing all right. We got our head on, we got our intake and exhaust manifold on, we got our side cover on. I'm going to take our distributor, we're going to polish up this shaft or the body so that it slides in a little bit better. And we're going to put some anti-seize on there so that we get it all over everything in the entire shop. The good news about these engines is you don't have to time them because the way the shaft is, it's a offset, what do you call it, notch, something like that. And so it'll only go in there one way, but we can put the spark plug wires on wrong. So we'll kind of have to time it, but not really. So that's what I'm going to do now is clean this thing up. I think the big advantage of this, other than getting new style points, is it's got mechanical advance in it. I'm not sure, but I don't feel like the original engines had mechanical advance or centrifugal advance. Centrifugal advance? Yeah, centrifugal advance. And there's no vacuum advance on these engines. So I'm going to get this cleaned up, thrown on there, and we're going to be pretty much ready to throw fuel at this thing. Earlier I mentioned about this thing having centrifugal advance. I'm not going to explain centrifugal advance because you guys probably all know how it works, but the way to tell if a distributor has centrifugal advance is if you grab the base of the shaft. I'm not going to now because it's got anti-sneeze all over it, and the top of the distributor shaft, and if they're not directly connected, so there's a little bit of spring action in between, that means that there's weights in there and it's got a centrifugal advance setup in it. So now we got to line this thing up and put her back together. It should only go in one way. I don't have any new W14 champion plugs. These things got a ginormous thread on these suckers. So I'm just going to go clean them up, throw them back in, and cross our fingers. Hope for the best. I lied. One of them's an AC, part number 75. Look at that. Took them over to the old bead blaster, good as new. I remember when I discovered my grandpa's bead blaster would restore spark plugs. Man, I was always dragging my mini bike and snowmobile spark plugs over there and overhauling them. Good stuff. You want to make sure you get all the sand blowing out of there, though, because you don't want that inside your engine. Before we spin our freshly overhauled spark plugs in, let's run some wiring, grab ourselves a 12-volt coil, and make sure we got spark first, because if we don't got spark, there's no point putting spark plugs in. And the engine turns over a whole lot easier without spark plugs in there, because all that compression we got, 4.6 to 1. It's killer on starters. We got our Delco 12-volt coil mounted in the mounting position that they provided us. We're bypassing the ballast resistor. We got jumper cables going from the coil to the distributor, and we got jumper cables that we're going to hook up to the battery. I'm not sure what kind of coil wire this is, but we can't slide it out of the distributor, so we're just going to have to test out the plug, which is fine. We got a test plug hooked up to the water neck up here, so that should be grounded, so let's see if we got spark. One other thing of note is this thing's got a Delco alternator. It's externally regulated, so we know this thing was 12 volts. When I was unhooking that coil, the bolts going through the firewall mounted on the back side was a 12-volt horn. You also notice it's got rear view mirrors, it's got wipers, it's got the aforementioned fenders. I know there were some issues in the 80s with hot rodders in the North Dakota government, so there was a lot of laws that past that you had to have fenders and had to have wipers and all that stuff. So I think what this guy was doing in the 80s was trying to appease them, and that's when he built the hood probably, built the fenders, put that 12-volt horn on there, put the wipers, the mirrors, all that good stuff, because that stuff's kind of tacky and added on later. Maybe not the hood part, but definitely the fenders and the wipers and the horn. So yeah, thankfully we don't have those laws here. It's kind of loose now. I mean, obviously you should have a horn, but fenders aren't required, wipers aren't required on Roadsters, stuff like that. But anyway, just a couple things to notice. So let's crank this thing over, see if we got some spark. All right, we're live. No spark action though. Let's take our cap off and see if we got any opening and closing going on to the points. Well, they're opening and closing. You know what that means. Let's give her the Mortske flick. Let's use our Mortske approved flicking device. Go get yours at mortskerepair.com. And for every Mortske repair screwdriver, we got several different designs. We got the blue one, the OG, the flick device. We got a reversible one that's red, white, and screwed. You know, kind of a 4th of July thing. But you can buy it any time of the year. And then we got the holiday version, which we kind of missed the holidays. But all those get you entered to win the Whistle Pig at mortske.com. So go check that stuff out. We got pry bars too, tire pressure gauges. We got all kinds of tools in there. We are hot out of super scrapers though, so don't come looking for one of those. Sorry, they go quick. We get the Mortske flick device right there. Let's not electrocute ourselves. I can hear it. But do we have spark? I'm an idiot, and I could have just stuck a coil wire on the coil. We don't need it hooked up to the distributor. Now let's see if we got spark. Still nothing. Do a little digging, see what we can come up with. This is a 2-piece style cap, so it's got a couple screws on the top. You can see where it splits right there. Looks like it's got the Mallory stamping on it. Part number 24010. Everything looks good there. Why for do we not have any spark? Now we're getting some spark action going on in there. Tell you what, let's hit them with the old Hansi file quick. Oh yeah, we got some sparking going on in there now. All right, let's see what we got going on at the old test plug here. There we go. That's what you like to see. Get this thing spun over to top dead center, hook up our spark plug wires accordingly. I think the firing order on this thing is 1, 2, 4, 3. I don't know why they wouldn't just make it 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, 1, 2, 4, 3. So close to going 1, 2, 3, 4. Distributor's timed. All our plug wires are hooked up. Let's see what we can do for fuel. We're definitely going to abandon this electric pump here, so let's get rid of this fuel pressure regulator and just put a barb on here and we'll gravity feed this thing, just like the old Model A's did with the Zenith. Nurse tank hooked up. Let's watch it just pour everywhere out of our Zenith. Maybe not. The first time on it. Oh yeah, there she comes. All right. I don't think this Zenith's gonna work for us. Maybe. Seems like it's slowing down. Probably just ran out of gas. Let's give her a crank, see what happens. Coil. Say it with me now. Slingshot, engage.
Slingshot engaged.
All right, let's check for spark. We're getting spark. Compression should not have went away. So, what's the problem? Well, let's check all the cylinders for spark. Spark on 4. I suppose we could have some bad spark plugs too. Spark on 3. Spark on 2. So if we had our timing off, it should be popping out the intake. But we're not getting any poppage. Should we get the carb cleaner? Ether? May as well. Flammable? Non-flammable. You don't want that. John Deere painted engine. John Deere Cosby sauce. Where's she gonna go? Silly starter Bendix. Do we need more gas than that? We know that carburetor's leaking everywhere. I think I got a better carburetor. I'll go grab it. It's just 2 bolts and a line. I don't know why these simple old updraft carburetors are so confusing to me. I don't know. It's not really confusing. I just don't have very good luck with them. I guess give me the most complicated carburetor ever, the Quadrajet, and we can rebuild those, but these things always fight me. Probably the fact that they're 90 years old and a million other people have been in there and everything's stripped out and rounded off and snapped off and hammered on. Nothing's flat anymore or true. And they're cast iron, so everything gets rusty. Bolts snap off. Anyway, rant over about updraft carburetors. I do remember on my 31 Model A Coupe, the black one, the gentleman I got it from said it had a Model B intake on it. He said they were good for a couple of horsepower. So, I don't know what's different about them. This carburetor moved nice and free. I had high hopes for it. Is there a gasket on there, or is it all silicone? Probably all silicone. Look at this bad mamma jamma. I bought this thing off eBay by some rebuilder on there to replace the one that I got the chassis out of Puddin's Model A, 2-door sedan, when he ruined that car by street rodding it. Go tell him that, yeah, he ruined that car. But anyway, I stole the carburetor off of that and put on the 30 Model A Coupe that we got out of southern Minnesota out of a estate auction. And the guy who bought that car wanted to keep the carburetor, which is fine, so I had to buy a new one for that car, so we might have to buy another new one for that chassis, I guess. So let's throw this on there and hopefully she don't leak. It better not, because this was not cheap. You know, we probably should scrape that gasket off there. It would have been easier to do this when the intake was off. We don't do anything the easy way though. That thing is way too pretty to be on this piece of crap. All right, now let's turn the fuel on our super expensive carburetor and see what happens. So far, so good. Oh, we had the coil hooked up that entire time. Awesome. All right, let's see what happens. Slingshot. Oh, let's hook the throttle up. That way we got a return spring on it so she don't go to the moon. All right, slingshot, engage. Now it's leaking gas. Dang things. Here we go. Yeah, baby. Is the timing off? We might need another battery. Old Lizard Larry's put some work in cranking this thing over, getting valves loose and all that, so we'll swap him out. Old Balls Capone is our backup battery sponsor. He's a repeat offender. He's helped out once before in the battery sponsorship game, so thanks, Balls Capone. I asked him what it meant. It's the name of his band. So if you're in a bar or at a wedding or somewhere, and the band's name is Balls Capone, tell him you watch Mortske Repair as well. All right, here we go. No accelerator pump on the old Zenith. Choke. Well, she runs. It's rough. I think we got to do a little bit of timing, and I also think we got a vacuum leak somewhere here. I can hear something hissing. So let's start with the timing. We'll back that screw off and maybe play with the timing a little bit and see what we can do there. This is where it would be nice to have a stock Model A where you just grab your timing lever, advance and retard it to where it needs to be. So the awesome thing about these is it's a Ford, so the distributor turns the wrong way. Ow. Oh yeah, the coil's hooked up. Of course it's gonna spark. Let's advance it a bit. Let's see what happens. I think it's running better though. Now we're out of fuel, probably. Close anyway. Yep, definitely out of fuel. Top her off with petrol and see if she'll run a little bit longer. What? You don't want to hear it run? There we go. Got our exhaust and intake leak a little bit better. You could tell that it changed the pitch of its tune when we did that. But it's still not running quite right. And obviously we know compression is significantly lower on 3 than it is on the others, so maybe that's part of it. But I don't hear it popping out the intake, so that's a good thing. That was an intake valve that we were fighting on number 3. Look at this. It will cough out the carburetor a little bit. So what's going on there is the guide isn't in very good shape. You could feel that valve moving back and forth, and that valve spring is probably not in great shape after putting all that heat in there. But anyway, that intake valve on number 3 is giving us grief. Imagine that still. I think this thing needs a valve job. So we're gonna have a sandwich and think about it. But anyway, it's running. It sounds good. It's not making any funny noises, but it just ain't running like a watch like it should. And I think it's because compression is low on number 3 due to that valve. And they probably all could use some touching up as well. So ignition seems fine. Carburetor seems fine. I think it's compression, unfortunately, which is due to our valve issue. Duff says we're going for a ride. Yeah. So you see how much coolant a good one leaks? I just topped it off last night. I'm sure it's coming out the water pump. We should put a leakless water pump in this thing. But we haven't yet. It's on the list. So you know this thing's gonna leak. It's cold out. We haven't driven that thing enough. Duff wants to go for a good, proper ride. And let's talk about this thing, the future of it. Yeah, and it's getting dark. So let's jump in the old A and go for a rip. This thing is so good. Such a good car. I say that now, it won't start. Load up. For those of you that aren't aware, I got this car, I think last October 2023, at a estate sale. I can't think of the town. Central Minnesota, kind of the cities area. And this guy was driving the ever-living crap out of this thing. And it is a great driver. I don't drive it much in the summer, but in the winter it works great. It's got a cute little heater like we were talking about earlier. And the lights work great, horn works. It's perfectly crappy. I haven't washed it since I owned it. Maybe rinse it off, but I don't even think I did that. Originally it was a rumble seat car. I ran mail to town in this thing. We'll go get errands. Duff thinks it's the greatest because we get to snuggle because it's a cozy coupe, that's for sure. I do have a leakless water pump to install. It's still 6 volt. It'd be cool to find a fender that wasn't wasted like that, didn't have the spare in it. Should take that rack off the back because it's just kind of silly, but we don't really do anything with this thing. Check the oil and put coolant in it, gas, that's about it. It's just so good, just amazingly solid. There's a little bit of rust in the fenders, but it's just a really good driver. There's that heater I was talking about. Well, maybe it's not the water pump that's leaking. This has got the old vacuum wolf whistle horn that doesn't work. It's got the stock style distributor, spark plugs, cap rotor, all that good stuff. It's got good exhaust. Carburetor leaks, of course. Engine leaks oil like a sieve, but it just frickin' works. Just drives great. I'm gonna show them how she starts. Key on, fuel on. You got her heater on full blast, full choke. Give her a couple bumps, pop the choke off. She'll light right up. Like a Swiss watch. You want to get the door good, sir? No cup holders for my squirt. 37,000 miles that guy put on this thing. Well, I put a few hundred on it, so 36 and change. Chocolate covered almonds. Run for you, I guess. Chocolate kills dogs like antifreeze does that I've never seen a dog drink. But we won't talk about that. Did you drive into the sun, Duff, or out of the sun? Well, I walked outside the shop earlier and I could smell smoke. So I did a quick lap around the yard and no fires in my yard. Sure enough, just talked to Bob because Bob knows everything. It's Pookie. Pookie's burning the pit. And well, I'll tell you what, Pookie's grandpa was a Bobcat dealership. Steve J, we called him. He was a Bobcat dealer in the area for many, many years. He passed away here, oh, October? Maybe September? And they had a whole bunch of Bobcat manuals, and they're throwing them away. So I snagged a few, and I probably got about a dozen of them. Anyway, we'll try to figure out what we can ship them with. What we can pack them with t-shirts. But anyway, we're gonna throw some of them service manuals in with some orders. They're just thin ones, and they're not real old ones. They're new old stock. They're still in the plastic. I'll tear them open and come on now. I'm talking to the camera and driving. This car requires all the attention, just like you. But anyway, we'll autograph a few Bobcat operators manuals. They're not service manuals, they're operators manuals. We'll throw them in with some orders. So not only will you get entered in a drawing to win the Whistle Pig, $3,000 cash, and 5 second place winners or runners up that get $100 a piece, but you also get an autographed Bobcat manual. But anyway, Pookie's probably burning those manuals right now. I was gonna go back there. It was really crappy out and cold and dark when I was digging through there. I was gonna go back on a nicer day and try to see if I could find some older ones or rarer ones, and I think I missed my opportunity. But anyway, if you order something and you want one of those operators manual, put a little note. You can put a little note in the Shopify order. It's gonna be hard to ship it with some stickers because the weight's gonna be way off, but you know, if you order a t-shirt or a fender cover or maybe a bobblehead, ball cap, something like that we can ship it with, a hoodie, we'll leave a note in there and we'll send you one. So anyway, now that we're caught up on what's going on in the neighborhood, that T Roadster, it's sitting on a 32 frame. It's sitting on a pretty dang nice 32 frame. And in case you haven't noticed, there's a 32.5 window. It's been sitting in the shop, just the body. And I got a new floor for that car, and I got some new chassis parts to build a new chassis. But I would much rather have, oh, that's a good one, Duff. But anyway, I would rather have a 32.5 window than a Model T Roadster. Of all the T's, I think maybe a Touring would be my favorite, and then a Roadster like that. I'd really like a T-bucket. My uncle had several T-buckets back in the day. He had some pretty wild ones, you know, the big tires in the 70s and 4-speeds and tunnel rams and tall windshields. I think those are the coolest T's. I think the cookie T, like the 50s style cars, and then the turtle deck cars like the Isky T are cool. But they're small. Like this car is small. My Model A Roadster is small, but T's are even smaller. And then I just can't get over how the frame isn't pinched and meets the body, and then how they put that skirting and hid the frame is just a sin. And I could fix all that, but would I love it? No. And the biggest thing is that 4-cylinder. At that same auction, I bought an overhead valve converted 4-cylinder Riley, what is it, a Riley 2-port, I think is what it's called.
we haven't done anything with that, and I assume that's why he had it. He was going to maybe put it in that car, but I still don't think it would be that wild of a car. It's what I'm getting at is it's going to drive just like this thing, and I already have this thing that's turnkey ready to go. And I've had this car for over a year, and I cannot force myself to cut this car up. So I think what's going to happen, I'll put price and availability in the video description. I would gladly sell the car. I think I paid like $3,800 for the car, $4 grand, and I think the chassis is worth all of that. And then now that it's running, it should be worth more. We know what the inside of the inside of that engine looks good. I think if a guy cleaned it up, did a valve job because it's just been sitting, and put new rings in it again because they've been sitting, that thing would be a really, really good engine. But I'm not going to go through the work of putting that car together and with that 4-cylinder or with that overhead valve conversion 4-cylinder, because it's not my jam. It'd be too much work for what it's worth. So I could either steal the chassis and put it under that 5 window, and then again the banger, I'd probably leave it together just for the time being, and you know, maybe lower it. And it's already got that drop axle, it's got hydraulic brakes, it's got 35 wires, it's got a lot of really good hot rod parts, or start to a hot rod. It's got a great 32 grill shell that would look great with that 5 window, which didn't come with a grill shell, but I do have some other 32 grill shells. So, but I wouldn't leave it a 4-cylinder long term. Probably put a V8 overhead valve of some sort. But so that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. Or, you know, if I do have an aftermarket chassis, I could build that up and use that on that 5 window. And then I got I got a 32 pickup box, and I got a yard full of 33, 34 truck cabs and grills, so we could build a neat little shop truck and maybe just run it back and forth to town with that banger in it, or maybe put that overhead valve Riley setup on it. Oh, bar's open, but I'm not really sure what to do with it. To be honest, I'd like to see somebody buy it and do whatever with it, you know, keep it the way it is, kinda. One thing I was even tempted to do in this video, it probably won't happen because we're running out of time, but that windshield is just way too tall. I want to cut like the top half of that 2-piece windshield, cut it down, give it a streamlined look. The other thing is, you know, like I could make yard art out of it until we need it, you know, buckle the hood down good and chop that windshield down, maybe throw kind of a mock-up seat in it, and then throw it in the back of the OG ramp truck and let it rot away outside. But that's kind of a sin as well. But and then if I did take and use the chassis, that body I would sell, get a few bucks back out of that. It's actually a really nice body. Obviously they're gonna have to do some work to it where they welded that skirting over the frame on the side, so it needs some work, but it's really dry. It's complete. Doors open and close great. It needs that filler panel between the deck lid and the back of the seat, which should be pretty easy to make, and I'm guessing Snyder's or some early Ford group sells a replacement to put on there, so somebody could make a neat little hot rod there. And that's the other thing, is I've got put in stock Model A chassis, and I feel like there's another one. Oh yeah, nobody's bought that other 31 Model A coupe that I got, so I'm thinking about hot rodding that, taking that chassis out. But anyway, those Model T's fit really well on Model A chassis, and it kind of hops them up, so it'd be a good way to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Puddin's chassis is unfortunately just rotting away in storage, so we could put that body on there, and then, you know, maybe get, well, it wouldn't take nothing to make it stop and steer, because it already does as a rolling chassis, but basically just mount the body and a gas tank and send it down the road to somebody who wants make a little T Speedster setup. But I think it would take more work than it would be worth. I'd probably just be better pulling the body off and setting it next to that chassis and be like, here, you do all the hard work. Because unfortunately Model T and stock Model A stuff just is not, it's not valuable. And the reason it's not valuable is because they're not driver friendly. Like not anybody, but a lot of people can drive these cars, but they're not, you don't cruise 80 down interstate, you don't cruise 60. Like this thing's pretty happy at 45. It's kind of where it likes it. It'll go a little bit faster, but There's not a lot of room in them. They're 6 volts. So if they don't start right away, you're SOL. You can convert it, but anybody who's in the game knows that stock Model A stuff is not bringing much money, and stock Model T stuff is not really bringing much either. Mainly guys are buying them for sheet metal donors, much like I'm thinking about doing with mine. But anyway, we got our stock Model A. We don't need a stock. I would, if the right stock Model T came up, I would buy it. I think a 2-door sedan would be better, so you can haul your buddies with, because this thing you can only take one person with. Like Slick and Craig were up here, and we had to take my 39 sedan because there's no way that 3 of us were going to sit in here, and I'm not going to cram somebody. Well, this car doesn't have a rumble seat anymore, but you get what I'm saying. Sedans are nice for hauling your buddies with. Plus the dog's got to come with, so 2 of us and Duff ain't going to fit in here. So anyway, that's the plans with that car. It's going to get cut up if somebody doesn't buy that thing. So price and availability in the video description. I really wanted to bang the video out so that car's been sitting in the shop for 2 years. People have been asking. It needs to get out of there. I'm trying to turn some of these cars that have been sitting in here for too long. We put that lift up and we had to move some stuff around. So the 33.5 window went into storage for now. And then this Roadster is hopefully going to be out of the shop. We'll start working on that 32, and if we get to where we get the floor in it and stuff like that, then maybe we'll just drop it on that body and then get everything working on that 32 chassis, and we'll have a stock-ish. I mean, it's already lowered a little bit, running and driving 32 crusty 5 window. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. We're going to work on that car whether this Model T sells or not, but just been collecting dust in the shop, and it's unfortunate that I let that happen, but that's the problem with YouTube, is you guys encourage me to buy silly things, so we just never got it done. But hey, it's running now. It really probably wouldn't take a ton to get it back on the road. It's going to need brakes, it's going to need seats. I never got a title with the car, so you have to go through that process with whatever your localities are. No title. It's not stolen though. But you know, it's going to need a water neck. Carburetor's got to be gone through. Well, like I said, it just needs, the engine needs opened up and redone. It's in such good shape that it deserves rings and a valve job and all that stuff. Maybe put a downdraft carburetor on it and a aluminum head. It'd be pretty neat. But you know, I think these cars are like 35 horsepower and the Model Bs are like 40 or 45 horsepower. So it is an improvement, but it's not enough. After driving my Model A Roadster with a pooched out, old, worn out, small block Chevy, the old bangers just don't scratch the itch for me anymore. So yeah, that's probably what we're gonna do with that thing. Cut it up, unfortunately. But like I said, price and availability in the video description. If you think my price is insane, sorry. That's what I think it's worth. That's what it's worth to me. And if nobody will give that, then I'll cut it up and keep my chassis and my grill, and I'll sell that banger or hang on to it for if we ever do get to that overhead valve setup, or put it all underneath a pickup. And I'll probably get, I mean, in my mind, that body's worth $1,000 or $1,500. So if we cut it up and you just want the body, you can buy the body that way. But that's probably what's gonna happen with that thing, because it's gonna get cut up. If that thing was if it was better done, like they had pinched the frame to meet the body, and it had a V8 and, you know, dual carbs on it, and it had some cool local history. But you know, the angle iron mounting the fenders on there, the way the tank pokes through the seats. Like I said, what really kills it for me is the way that they put that skirting on the body and around the frame, and it looks terrible. They didn't do the greatest job of it, so it's cracking, it's showing its age. There's nothing great, like, you could build that car from scratch right now if you wanted to, and I wouldn't. So it is what it is. I need an old glass soda bottle so it really looks old-timey in here. I need one of them little old-timey old-timey tweed caps and a tweed jacket as well. Duff, you're pretty good. The Brittany Spaniels have looked the same since the 30s. 90 years later, you're still looking good, though. We should get some chains for this thing and just go out ripping her in the snow. Comment down below if you want to see some off-roading done in a Model A that's all chained up.
All right, there you have it. We got this 1927 Model T Ford hot rod running for the first time in pert near 40 years. If we'd have had some coolant and went through the brakes and did a few other things, maybe put a more permanent gas tank and a seat in it, we could drive this thing. But like I talked about earlier, it's not really in the cards for me to get this particular setup running and driving. So appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Go check out the giveaway at mortske.com. We're giving away the Whistle Pig. Vanna showed up to show you the Whistle Pig. For every $1 you spend at mortske.com gets you 1 entry at winning the old Whistle Pig and $3,000 cash. Runner-up, we're giving 5 of those away, giving $100 a piece. So go over there and check out. We got ball caps, beanie caps, sweatshirts. We got hoodies, though. We got pry bars, screwdrivers, magnetic can koozies. We are fresh out of Super Scrapers. Sorry about that. But bobbleheads, we got those. Fender covers. We got all kinds of great stuff on hand. And there's plenty of opportunity to win. It's way better than winning the lottery. You got way better odds than that. We got a lot of inventory on the shelf. So head on in there. You got pretty good odds of winning. So, all right. Thank you very much for watching. Go check out our other videos. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Remember, it doesn't matter how you get it done as long as you're having fun. Even if it takes you 2 years to get it to run. Dang, I'm a poet and didn't even know it. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.